Back to the wonderful 101. In Operation 3, after recruiting the incredibly entertaining Russian fellow that is Wonder Yellow and making it to the next goddess statue, you are immediately greeted by the totally original mad scientist slash commander that is Wanna and his Death Star clone Daija. Now I know that some people are going to question this pick over, say, Daiku Orochi for a few reasons, particularly the very first impression, but allow me to state my thoughts. The fight starts with you riding on this giant missile fired from this mysterious character that comes straight out of nowhere to ram into Daija's energy core to stop the laser, all the while avoiding attacks and debris from flying Envas and then ramming the missile into the core. But the core is still active, so the only logical thing to do is shove the missile even deeper into Daija by hammering it into the core a few thousand times, and then that's about all she wrote. Now I bet that you're all scratching your heads right now about this pick because some of you might think that's pretty shitty, but after a few seconds of dialogue, Wanna reveals his trump card with... Holy shit! I have to fight that?! Yes, and I have to say that this fight is one of the highlights of the game for me, because not only do I find this boss fight's battle to be more enjoyable than Orochi, the design is cooler, the atmosphere is scarier, and it just feels more satisfying to put him down. And I'll be honest, when I first saw this thing's true form, my mind was blown. Don't know how it could have surprised me, considering that it's this game. The true first phase of this fight is set on Daija's back, avoiding missiles, lightning bolts, and these snake creatures that are annoying to kill because they go into the ground, but you have to kill them in order to progress. A few times in fact. And then he'll fling you off and force you to use your Unite Glide and avoid some more of those stupid snake creatures that can restrict your movement if one of them touches you. And then he tries to eat you for a one-hit kill. Fortunately, the game gives you enough time to avoid his bite attack, unless you've been constricted by the flying snakes. But then after you piss it off by making him bite his body in half with a hammer, it makes no sense, I know, then the real fight begins. After losing about over half his body, he breaks out his arms and then unleashes his giant buzzsaws of death. And while this fight takes place on an endless supply of Envas, this is where Daija's attack arsenal comes into full force, with a buttload of missiles that he never seems to run out of, using his dragon whisker things to try to impale you, and use his giant buzzsaw hands to attack you, and at the same time destroy the Enva that you're standing on. After recruiting another wonderful one into your team in each chapter, the level design does a great job of teaching you the basic uses of each character, and then putting your knowledge to the test with the boss fight at the end. You know, just as any good boss fight should. And Daija does a much better job at testing out your skills with Wonder Yellow than the other normal boss fights do with any other wonderful one. By having you use his hammer to attack him, use it as an umbrella to defend against missiles, and even pound his whisker things into the platform so that you can tightrope on it to reach the head. And then you unleash hell on Wanna. Wow, as if I was gonna forget. Those buzzsaws of his, you can even stop them by using your hammer and destroying the 3 orbs when he sweeps his arm across to blow them up. Once you take his health down to 0, he decides that he wants to shred you to pieces with these electric razor discs of doom, all the while destroying even more Geth Jerk. Then through a series of epic quicktime events, you force feed him his own thunder, good god that sounds gross, giving him another face full of gun, and showing off just how awesome the color yellow is by impaling him with another Enva. Remind me not to piss you off, Wonder Yellow. On a side note, I love this fight so much I actually had to come back to this chapter before I beat the game, just so I could fight him again. This fight is just that good. You know, Platinum, that shows you've done something right there. You face this guy in Africa. He completely destroyed you in the beginning. After that, he made you question your motives, he has mocked you, he has messed with your mind, and now in a desert in Colorado with motorcycle and sword in hand, the final duel between Raiden and Cyborg William Turner can finally commence. In the middle of nowhere with a sunset in the background, a one-on-one duel to the death, this is the perfect setting for the ultimate fight against cyborg ninjas. Bar none the best normal fight in the game and one of the best fights in the series, Jetstream Sam. But hey, what would you expect from a series known for good boss fights mixed with Hideki Kamiya? But back to Sam himself. This guy is a cyborg ninja like yourself, as if I wasn't pointing out the obvious, so you can expect him to have some moves similar to yours. Before I point out even more obvious crap, he attacks with some fast combos in quick succession and dash attacks that will require you to be quick on the draw. You're gonna have to be pretty good at blocking and dodging if you're gonna win this time, and even if you knock his sword straight out of his hand, he's still pretty competent on the battlefield and can do some damage empty-handed. Again, did I mention blocking? Because if you're not prepared, he can crush your skull a la Mortal Kombat towards the ground with a bang. What, did you think it was going to be rainbows and ponies blasting out your ass? But then after a while, he gets his sword back and you can continue the fight like it was before. Now this is a pretty intense fight and a very hard one if you're not prepared. And considering that this guy cut out your left eye and arm at the beginning of the game, I wouldn't expect any less. In the other fights against Mistral and Sundowner, for example, you finish the boss fight by slicing them into a million pieces with your blade mode. But in this case, the finale of this fight is simplified to just knocking a sword out of his hand and stabbing him in the heart with your sword. And that's it. This might sound like a complaint, but it's actually the way it should be. An honorable fight against two cyborg ninjas to the death. Any other way would have been dishonorable. And after the fight, you get his sword, which is cooler than yours because it's the color red and it's got a cool name, the Murasame. Or as I like to call it, the Badass Mother! Unfortunately, you don't get to use it until you beat the game. I mean, after all, it is one of the strongest weapons in the game. But sweet servants of the almighty King Wee Wee, it certainly is a fine reward for a great fight. And we wouldn't have it any other way. Ever heard of a game that has crossed the line twice? And I'm not talking about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. No? Well, then you've obviously never heard of Mad World up until this point. Or you've just been watching with the volume down or something. The first line crosser should be pretty obvious to most people, to where the violence is so brutal, it's downright enjoyable and often hilarious. But what about the second one? Well, why don't I just introduce you all to the Black Baron, who is one of the more interesting characters in the game. Each time you gain enough points to move on through the level, the Black Baron shows up every time, complete with his swagger and hoe, and introduces the bloodbath challenges and the rules for each one. While his hoe is happy to demonstrate what goes on by completely mutilating the Black Baron by, say, running him over with a motorcycle, throwing him into a jet turbine, using his head as a golf ball. The list goes on, folks. And yet, after clearly getting his brains blasted out by soda, he is still alive and well each time you enter a bloodbath challenge. Like I said, it's video games, don't question it. But anyways, after you take down sumo wrestlers, samurai, and giant mechs with aliens, you finally reach the top of the Death Watch Tower. And it's finally time to face off against the number one. So yeah, you're probably wondering who the number one spot is. Is it Agent 13? Not quite. Howard Acrease? Okay, you're just messing with me, right? The number one of Death Watch and my number 5 is the Black Baron. Seriously, the final fight in this game was so well built up and random at the same time that when the champion of Death Battle turns out to be this guy, it's quite a shock to the system to say the least. That is unless you watched the Autarch's Mad World countdown a few years ago. And with a great build-up, sort of, you'd expect a great final fight, right? And well, with this game, you'd definitely be right. But this guy isn't your typical voodoo doll maker who makes a living by destroying people's sanity, not your typical god who wants to destroy the world because it belongs to him, nor is he your typical succubus that looks absolutely nothing like a succubus with hilarious cringe-inducing dialogue. He's just a superpowered pimp who just wants to introduce his backhand to your face. Now, if that isn't the recipe for a ridiculous battle, then I don't know what is. Top of the Death Battle Tower in a boxing ring, thousands of miles up, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. Despite all the swag that he carried before, and not to mention billions of dollars spent on resurrecting the dead, the Baron sure does know how to throw his weight around the battlefield. Complete with punches and kicks that are pretty easy to avoid and straightforward. Seriously, this fight is a complete joke if you haven't memorized. And then when you drain his health down by a little, you are forced into a power struggle where you match punch after punch in one of the most epic fist clashes I've ever seen in a game. Followed by quick time events that look like they'd be right at home in a Chuck Norris film. Then after you succeed, you bash his head straight into the ground. But then he picks himself up, and the real fight begins. Oh boy, the boxing gloves are off now, gentlemen. The Baron is pissed and he wants you dead. Even the music changed from the laid-back look pimpin', which reflects his personality perfectly, now it's changed to the downright pissed so cold. Even the singer in the background sounds angry. Don't believe me? Listen to this.
Baby, I'm so cold. I tell them cool that conversation. What you dealing with is nationwide, live wire style when they rock. Now you fixed your fry.
Man, now that's scary. Oh, and remember when I said he was a superpowered pimp? Yeah, I wasn't kidding. He still has his usual attacks from before, but now he can do lightning fast falcon punches, throw a giant Mickey Mouse glove fist at you, how that works is beyond me, and a giant vortex that can kill you in one shot, or launch you out of the arena if you're not careful. Oh, and you don't want to be the victim of his lightning falcon kick if you miss the quick time event. Seriously, these attacks freaking hurt! Still following the Mad World normal boss fights. Very simple, but fun. Unfortunately, that's the only problem with this fight, and why it isn't any higher. It's way too friggin' easy. All of his attacks are easy to dodge if you time your dodges right, even with his newfound superpowers. Oh, and if you're low on health, the geisha girls that you saved in Area 5 will be happy to throw a happy onion into the ring straight out of her awesome rock on her though. Shut up! But only once, and it rarely happens. It's a simple fight, but well worth climbing up the ranks when you can finish this guy off with one of the most satisfying finishers in the game. Platinum clearly didn't think that Falcon punching him and his teeth into the audience was enough. So they decided to give you the satisfaction of, you ready for this? Home running him into a giant dartboard. Bloody and realistic. Not relevant to anything on this list, but remember the second line? Well, this game crosses it again when you find out that the Baron isn't even black. Said before by the Autark 4 years ago, crosses the line twice. Nonetheless, this is a great fight, and it makes me happy that he died more than once. Otherwise, we would have had our final boss be that of a lame businessman instead. Think about how that would have turned out, huh? Let me just say this right now. When I was writing the order for this list, I had to rearrange the top 4 boss fights on this list 3 times before finishing the script. Since the top 4 fights in this list are just so good, I had a very hard time deciding them in the perfect order. And with that out of the way, at number 4 we have Jubileus. In a game with a hypersexual female character beating up angels, cutscenes and boss fights that make Devil May Cry's flashy visuals green with envy, and a final boss fight that is the favorite of JonTron himself, you get a final challenge as one of the most popular boss fights in gaming history. And it's not hard to see why. I mean, you are fighting God itself in the midst of space. The build-up for this fight is also great. All of the cardinal virtues throughout the game talk about her often, but you don't even see her till the end of the game after fighting Baldur and a fake ending out of nowhere. But hey, that's what you'd expect. Not some entity of death that comes straight out of nowhere with no relevance to the story. Great build-up? Check. Even getting to the fight is thrilling. You ride up a space rocket on a motorcycle while it's launching in space. Cool intermission level? Check. And what this amounts to is one heck of a fight. At first she attacks you using her weird hair things to throw globs of lightning of fire at you, perform a 3-hit Falcon Punch combo, and occasionally summon a Fire Falcon to roast your sorry ass. And that's just the start of the fight. After breaking one of her hair streams, she turns up the heat by changing the very landscape around you into a field of lava and fire, while jumping around and avoiding the fire and lava. It's definitely pretty cool and just plain fun hopping around like a flea on seltzer water or something. Break another face thing and she changes the landscape again. Same layout but with ice this time. My main problem with this fight will be this room right here. You fall into the ice, you die. Simple as that. Break another face and you're in the midst of a thunderstorm of floating rocks as platforms. Then the fight resumes as before. She has the same attacks as she did before, but this time she can summon some mini Milky Way galaxies that can turn you into a defenseless little girl. You get hit by this and you're pretty much a sitting duck. But her final attack is the worst of all. She summons a black hole to try and kill you. Can't be joking about this. If you don't outrun it with Beast Within, you'll be sucked in and you'll die in one shot. It's a fun, and for all you tired of hearing me say this, satisfying final challenge that tests your mastery of the combat and witch time. And not to mention the music, the greatest Jubilee, is one of the best final boss themes ever built up. Great fight music? Check! Though to be honest, I do wish that you can beat up Jubileus with hair demons like in every other fight. That is until the end of the fight. Holy shit! I swear, how do you even? You summon the Queen of Demons to lay down the most epic Falcon Punch ever, causing Jubileus to fly across the entire solar system, and then having her burn up inside the sun. Then roll credits. This fight alone made me love Platinum Games, and wasn't oh okay, it's still not over. The game gives the fourth wall the middle finger by crushing the credits under the big boot with another fake ending, and now you have to destroy Jubileus' body before it crashes onto the earth. Then it's really over. End credits and random dancing. Great finisher? Check! I don't know about you, but this final boss and ending are summed up in 3 words. Money well spent. Awesome design, great music, fun battle, great test of skill, and you can see why the internet loves this fight so much. Sure, they could have done a lot more with it, but I guess that's just the way it goes. But hey, it was a better final battle than the actual creator in the sequel. What the hell happened here? After all your troubles, after beating up dragons, robo-snakes, and giant mecha robots, you finally confront the biggest jerk of them all, Jerginga. This has to be one of the most intense, flashy, and satisfying final boss fights I have ever faced. And not to mention, one of the longest. Not joking in the slightest when I say this. This fight can last about an hour if you don't know what to do. After a long monologue, Andross' mechanical cousin decides to shut up and start the fight. And then it's your job to destroy Jerginga before he explodes and crashes towards Earth. Now, I'm gonna be honest here, one of the few reasons this fight didn't make it into the top 2 is because of this first phase. It's boring! All you do is attack the orbs around his container, attack the tentacles that pop up out of nowhere, use your Unite Claw in hand to spin the orbs, and rinse and repeat. It's not terrible though, far from it, but it's repetitive and very underwhelming to say the least. But I can safely say that this is one of 2 parts of the fight that I don't care for. After you destroy the orbs and use your humongous Unite swords and whatnot to defeat him, he crashes through the floor and starts sending random Geth Jerk to assault your ass. All the while revealing his plot to destroy the humans. So yeah, again, spoilers. Kind of like Egil from Xenoblade Chronicles, Jerginga is a tragic villain. He brought his army of jerks from the future to destroy the human race because the wonderful 100 in the future become the rulers of the galaxy. A little cliche, but it does have some originality. I know that I complained about the first phase of this fight for being underwhelming, but thankfully the fight gets better from here. Here Jerginga dons his own Wonder Mask and goes all Wonder Jerk on you, and transforms into Wonder Jerginga, whose design is very cliche, being a head-in-hand boss. A boss design that I've seen so many times, it drives me insane. Oh well, at least he looks cool. Since this is the biggest jerk of them all, he's gotta have a huge arsenal of attacks up his sleeve. And sure enough, in his Wonder form, this guy comes packing pretty much every attack that all the Wonderful Ones can do. He can use the debris to transform into hands that can't be blocked unless you have the Unite Guts ability, a whip with a spiked ball that you can steal from him, razor sharp swords, bombs to slow you down, hammers, sniper rifles that look like super scopes, and claws to open holes through time and space. Oh, and he can also seal some of your teammates so that you can't use a certain Unite morph. It's a tough battle that tests your abilities, and it forces you to experiment your attacks with his forms to see what combinations work, which I can definitely appreciate. Once you take his health bar down to 0, you gather up all the Wonderful Ones, and quite literally, blow his brains out. But with Jerginga dead, the fortress begins to explode, and now you pilot the Virgin Victory to safety. Oh, and remember when I said that there were 2 parts of this fight that I didn't care for? Well, here you go. Vorken's ship, the Mazier, comes out at the opportune moment to save you from an Enva, and now here's where things get very annoying. You have to control 2 ships at the same time. I get the gesture, guys, but this is just plain stupid. You pilot both out of there after potentially dying 30 times, you beat the game, right? Remember when he said that he was the fortress? The biggest boss fight in Hideki Kamiya's library of games, the biggest on this list, and one of the biggest boss fights in gaming history. Even bigger than Jubileus, Phalanx, and the Gen Moran for Monster Hunter combined. How big, you ask? Well, That's what I want to talk about real quick if you guys don't mind. The average height of a human in this game is 177 centimeters in height, which is 5 feet and 9 inches tall, and 147 pounds in weight. Whereas the Gakujin robots that you command are 110 meters tall, which is around 360 feet. So if we take the height of both and compare them to the size of Jorginga himself, which clocks in at 221 kilometers in height, that makes him about... I'm gonna carry the over 700,000 feet. Sorry that I wasted your time and gave you guys nightmares for the night. Let's continue. Now, I know I complained about some parts of this fight, but he wouldn't be this high if this final phase wasn't so f***ing amazing. Showing his true power with the power of over 9,000 in Dragon Ball Z terms, he's now on a desperate assault to destroy the planet for good. And with his full power, you know that he can pull it off easily. But you can't let him do that, otherwise the entire planet is dead. Increasing your power to fight the biggest threat while one of the best boss teams in the recent decade starts playing, you're pumped and now ready to take this guy down. You start the fight on an invisible platform while he throws up shields to protect himself, bringing up a few hundred Gakujin robots to kick the crap out of you so you can use them to break the barriers. All at the same time, he's got an endless supply of missiles to rain down on your head, spike balls that you can use as ammo, lasers from his fingers, all the while just sitting there arms crossed and looking pretty boss. You'll need to use your Unite Morphs at maximum power in order to break those barriers, fighting more robots to increase your army, and decimating him with the biggest sword in the world as you watch his health bar go down to 0 in 3 seconds flat. Following that are some epic quick time events that you'll actually want to pull off. Next phase has you flying around his body and attacking those green orbs all over his limbs. But he's not afraid to roll out those punches and kicks if you're not careful. He can also fire off a barrier of lasers that aren't too hard to avoid if you're careful, and freaking meteors. After taking out all the weak spots, he reveals the final weak spot, which couldn't be more obvious even if there were arrows pointing to it. Then after one of my favorite moments in the game where he gets hit by all 7 of the superpowered Unite Morphs and a Platinum Headbutt, which by the way will be a great final smash, he still isn't dead. Now you're on one last mission to use Protect the Earth, which is one of the most OP finishers ever. Now if you'll just pick up the pieces of your brain that were just blown right there, we can continue on. This is easily one of the greatest final boss fights that Hideki Kamiya has ever brought to the table. It has almost everything that makes a final boss a true favorite of mine and any other diehard fan out there. Awesome design, awesome build-up, awesome music, awesome delivery, awesome battle, and it was just downright satisfying to defeat. Sure, for me in particular, the first phase was a dud, and that frickin' vehicle section can be a pain if you're not prepared for it. But since everything else in this fight makes up for it, I can pretty much enjoy every second of this fight no matter how many times I come back to it. Get yourself a Wii U, guys. You know you want to. After all the hardships, after turning countless enemies into hamburger, you finally reach the big bad guy himself, Senator Stephen Armstrong. Combine that with his Metal Gear, and we get the most epic final battle in Metal Gear history. But before we delve into the fight, I want to mention the music first. As Fight the Knight from Sonic and the Black Knight is to Josh Scorcher, and You Will Know Our Names from Xenoblade Chronicles is to the Quarter Guy, Collective Consciousness will be my music for fighting against a zombie apocalypse. It's just that kind of song for me, but sorry to waste your time, onto the fight. You start by fighting the Metal Gear, and this fight tests you of your skills with blocking and using Ninja Run to avoid his ski blades that he ripped from Kopaka. Then he'll sweep his arms across the battlefield, which can only be avoided by using Ninja Run. After a bit of attacking the arms a bit, he'll use his leg to try and stomp on you. Then you can use your blade mode to hack away at the leg's armor, climb the leg, and slice the leg clean off. And now you're free to unleash hell on the head. But as that health meter might tell you, he'll just get right back up. Then some geckos will come and try to crash your party, but if you ask me, this is just pointless because the Metal Gear will just kill them with its plasma cannons. Then he goes back to trying to crush you again with his arms. Same strategy as before, except he'll sweep the battlefield with one one arm, and this can only be avoided by jumping. Defeat the second leg, slice it off, and we get to one of the most jaw-dropping quick-time events in a hack and slash. You toss the Metal Gear by its arm, tearing off said arm, and going into an epic clash. Yeah, Assassin's Creed would kill to pull off crap like this. And then, you guessed it, you get to slice it to pieces with its own arm. And if you feel like it, you can do it for as long as you want. I am not making this up, you can do this for hours. And then you board the body, and you have to face Armstrong himself. After he steps out of the cockpit and shows his awkward face, he reveals his true power by absorbing the energy of the Metal Gear itself and turning into Super President Hulk. And boy, can he kick some ass. Even Raiden himself can barely take it despite being the tank that he is. And while this gives Armstrong a certain serious factor, some parts of this cutscene like this
Played college ball, you know.
make him seem kinda stupid. Honestly, I don't know if I should laugh at it or help but raise an eyebrow. And while he's kicking the crap out of Raiden and telling us about the time when he attended University of Texas, in my opinion, every single dumb, funny moment in the series can be summed up by this scene right here.
Don't fuck with this, Senator!
Yeah. As dumb as it is, it's kind of funny if you think about it. Now I have to ask, is it just me, or is this not the greatest design for anybody running for president ever? Screw The Last of Us. This is my vote for character of 2013. I'm gonna be honest here. First time playing this game, I actually hated this boss fight, but with a little practice, I can actually beat him easily. But enough about that. He breaks your sword in two like a toothpick and proceeds to kick your butt some more. And then he decides to give the cliche speech about why he is doing what he's been doing. However, instead of being too terribly cliche, his motives are surprisingly deep and well intended. But again, I'm not spoiling it for you. I'd go into details, but that's a whole different can of worms that I'm not going to open. Sit there with your swag and fancy cigars all you want, I'm not doing it today. Otherwise, this countdown will be even longer than it already is. Then after you remember that you're playing a game, you have to fight him in another forced failure scenario. Regardless, you can't die, but you can't win, your tired hand and all. And as if the humor couldn't get any crazier, he rips off his shirt and gives the Metal Gear fan base its favorite overused meme. 4 beatings later, Raiden still doesn't die. But as the plot says that the villain never wins, Wolf comes back at the nick of time so that you can finish the fight. You finally get to use the badass mother. Then the final phase begins, and it's awesome. A burning battleground, a war that needs to be stopped, a final boss scene that should be the national anthem of America,
Nanomachine, son.
and you can see why people like Rabbit Luigi hold this fight in such high regard. I mean, where else in the series do you have a fight with the best on-the-nose politician in gaming? Nothing in the entire game could have tested you more than this. You've already seen what this guy could do before. Now that's been amped up to 11, there are no holds barred in this part. You thought the other final bosses in the series focused too much on one-on-one fist fights? How about a boss that can combo punch after punch, uppercut you into the sky, create forced explosions around him, and cause volcanic craters just by punching the ground? Just like any other final boss fight should do, this fight will do everything to test you even more than those darn SATs in high school. Having you destroy giant heaps of the Metal Gear with your blade mode, blocking his punches, countering his attacks with QuickTime events, it's all so satisfying when you do. Considering this guy broke your sword and dialed your phone number, you feel like a total badass when you counter his moves with a bone-breaking punch to the face and toss him into the debris. Unfortunately, to make matters worse, he has a move where he can recover his health insanely fast, but it's pretty easy to deal with. And if you want to try, you can fight him bare fist without a sword after he knocks your sword away if you're feeling bold, though I'm not sure if it works because I haven't done it myself. It's a fun but challenging fight if you're not prepared, but it's so worth it when you can impale him with your sword and rip his still beating heart right out of his chest. Again, it's not exactly the best final fight in the series, but it's pretty fulfilling if you've been looking for something different. And if you're a fan of the series or fast-paced action games, you'll love it anyways. An awesome fight for an awesome character. And now here begs the ultimate question. What the heck could possibly top this? I know you're all excited, but before we get to the number 1 spot, let's recap. Number 15, The Masters. Number 14, Bogey Alpha and Bogey Bravo. Number 13, The Metal Gear Ray. Number 12, Smash Bros. Sakurai. Number 11, Herr Frederick von Twirlenkiller. Number 10, Gamora. Number 9, Sapientia. Number 8, don't know how to pronounce your name. Number 7, Daija. Number 6, William Turner. Number 5, he isn't even black. Number 4, Jubileus. Number 3, Jerkinga. And number 2,
Nanomachine, son.
Each of the awesome boss fights on this list have brought to the table something unique, and they all show just how creative game developers can be. They just go the extra mile. But for number 1 to be the best that it already is, it needed to have everything that the other fights had and then some. You all may love my number 1, some of you may think that the other boss fight should have been number 1 instead. Regardless of your thoughts, my number 1 boss fight in Platinum Games history, and in my top 5 favorite boss fights of all time, is the Masked Lumen Sage. Yes, I know that this was a predictable choice, but being completely honest, after Bayonetta 2 came out, there was no question that this fight would be the king of Platinum Games boss fights. Now I know that some of you might be cheering or screaming, "What sense does this make? 4 over-the-top final boss fights than this?" Yeah, I completely understand what you guys are saying. Sure, he isn't as challenging as Armstrong or as flashy as Durgenga, but let me explain why he's the top choice. Just like Prince Vorkon and John, this guy isn't your giant boss fight like Daija, but he is one of the best survival boss fights out there, bringing out some similar abilities as you do. But with this guy, you don't want to screw around. He's tough, fast, and can kick your ass pretty easily if you're not careful. The first phase is a one-on-one duel, matching blow for blow. But just like Bayonetta herself, he can even summon the Cardinal Virtues to attack in the same fashion as your Wicked Weaves. And he can also use his variation of Witch Time to slow you down for a few hits. It starts off pretty straightforward, but once he hits a certain point of health, he ups the what the f meter by a lot by summoning one of the bosses from the first game to change the environment, while you... Wait. No. Are you serious? Oh heck yeah! Summon your Infernal Demon to fight his Angel. How awesome is that? And then the fight will resume as before with a few new attacks, while at the same time the boss monsters are fighting in the background. So yeah, you're getting dinner and a show. But the background isn't just for show. Sometimes your demon will get knocked back and the angel will be gearing up for a dangerous attack. And if you don't attack the sage enough or don't dodge at the right time, you're taking a hit. Thankfully, you have a big enough opening to attack the sage enough times for the demon to disable the attack. Basically, it's the demons and angels being linked to each fighter, and doing well in the fight as to how the fighter fights as well. It's a fun fight, but pretty difficult, and you will be given that dodge button to work out. Then you lower his health just a bit more and kill his angel, and the fight is taken into the air, summoning Madame Butterfly while he summons Temperantia, and you're in the middle of one of the most epic Titan fist fights ever. While flying, for God's sake. It's pretty much the same as before, but the insane visuals and the difficult yet fair challenge definitely sets this fight at a pretty high level. Even the second fight, yes there's a second fight, the intense atmosphere and awesomeness have it in the very slightest diminished in terms of quality. And there's even a third fight with him in chapter 12 that, even though it doesn't quite measure up to the others, is still pretty darn good. And after a series of quick time events during the first fight, you actually enter a part where you can play as Madame Butterfly herself in a Punch-Out-esque battle. It's very short, but if that wasn't fun, then I don't know what to say. Each fight with him is relatively short, but it's the sense of tension and satisfaction that makes his fight such a hit with me. Yeah, I know I complained about fighting the same boss fight on repeat with Prince Vorkon from earlier, but for me, this fight would be the only exception. And now here's the trump card as to why I put him in the number 1 spot. While I put the other final boss fights so high on this list is for the satisfaction and the great sense of finality in them. But what this fight manages to do is to be challenging but fair, intense, flashy as hell, and have a sense of finality better than most final boss fights that I know of. And he isn't even the game's final boss! And in chapter 4, for God's sake. Now that is an accomplishment, and one of the reasons why I was anticipating this game so much. Many other hack and slash games have created moments that raise the bar and tension to a ridiculously high level, while this boss fight alone sets Bayonetta 2 to raise past the bar, break it into a million pieces, and toss it into a pit of death. It's moments like these that remind me why I love their game so much, and why it makes me so excited for almost every game that Platinum throws at us. If you're ready to experience these games for yourself, this will be the best time to do so. I'm the Awesome Yojimbo, and Kamiya, collab Platinum Games with CyberConnect 2, please!